Okay, so this is lesson 510 of Everyday Math, a little help for the parents. First of all, let's take a look at the vocabulary words we have in this lesson. We have precipitation, which means the amount of rainfall. Of course, it can also mean the amount of snow or amounts of other water that we get. But for our purposes today, it's the amount of rainfall. Also, students will be using this Everyday Math book, and you can see they're going to be looking at amounts of rainfall in different cities. So that's how it's used. That's how precipitation is used. Thousandths means 1 part out of 1,000 parts. Okay, so that's like if you have one of those big cubes, all right, and if you chopped it up and took one of the smaller cubes out of it, then that would be 1 out of 1,000. Okay, so basically 1 out of 1,000. And the reason we're looking at thousandths today is because we start to talk about millimeters. We start to review millimeters. And a millimeter, in fact, is a very, very tiny unit of measurement. Okay, as you can see, it's actually 1/10 of a centimeter, a millimeter is. Okay, so if we have a centimeter that's this long, then the millimeter part of it is just this teeny tiny part here. This part. And the reason we're bringing up millimeter and thousandths together is because a millimeter means 1,000th of a meter. So it means there are 1,000 things that are this long in a meter. Okay, so we can say 1,000th of a meter. Okay? So that's how we can look at a millimeter. Now, those are the vocabulary words that kids need for this lesson, so they can be a little bit tricky. We want kids to be able to read decimal numbers. So if we take this thousandth and we convert it to a decimal, remember the decimal is the one with the point, so it's going to be 0 point or 0 decimal point. This is the tenths place. This is the hundredths place. This is the thousandths place. So just like all the numbers to the left of the decimal have place values, the numbers to the right of the decimals also have place values. So the tenths and the hundredths, which we've already talked about. Today we're talking about the thousandths place. So that goes out 3 places to the right of the 0. Okay, that's a very, very tiny piece of something, and we want kids to be able to read out that far to the thousandths place decimal numbers. And also, if there were a whole number before this too, like 8 or 92, we would want them to be able to say 92. And so this decimal, when it's in a number, in the middle of a number like this, means and. That's how that's read. 92 and, this would be 8 thousandths. That's how we would read that number. We want kids to be able to look at different decimal numbers, so from thousandths to tenths to hundredths, and be able to put them in order using a centimeter, millimeter scale. So be able to use this and know which decimal is bigger or smaller. We want them to be able to compare differences among rainfall data to solve problems. So they're going to use the chart, the map of the different rainfall, and they're going to be able to solve problems using that information. And we also want them to be able to estimate answers to decimal number stories involving difference and ratio comparisons. So basically we want them to be able to make a good guess at the answer to a number story that has decimals in it when we're talking about subtracting, when we're using subtracting, and also when we're using if one thing may be bigger than another thing, one part of something may be bigger than another part of something. We want kids to be able to compare those things. So they need a lot of practice with this. It can be a little bit tricky, but those are the things that we're looking to help kids understand. How you can help them with that at home. You can have them measure things in centimeters and millimeters. Have them measure it in centimeters, ask them how many millimeters it is, ask them what part of a meter that is. Okay, have them convert it from their centimeters to millimeters to a parts of a meter in decimals. Okay, those are certainly ways that will help kids be able to do this. Have them take a look at maps in the newspaper or on the news that might have rainfall or precipitation data on it. Talk about it a little bit and see what they're noticing from different places around the state or around the country or different places around the world. All of those types of conversations are going to help the kids put some real life context to this, so they can see, wow, you know, a few centimeters of rain is actually a lot, okay? Or a few centimeters of snow when it melts. Especially, we just had a real life example of that yesterday. We watched a lot of melting happen, all that snow, and it became, you know, a real life example of precipitation, of what happens when we get precipitation. Even though that was snow, then we did get some rain on top of it. Okay, but that's something you can talk to them about and have them just look at different information from different sources. So there are definitely lots of ways that that you can help your kids with this. Use the word precipitation. You know, use the word thousands. Use this vocabulary. See if it's making sense to them, and basically do anything you can to help reinforce it. So this is lesson 510, application to rainfall of 3rd grade everyday math.